Okay, so we're going to do a UITableView example here, and I will start with a single view application, and go ahead and click Next. And I'm going to give it a product name. We're going to call it Tableview Demo. Swift language, and it's going to target the iPhone. And I'll place my code anywhere on my Mac, doesn't matter. Okay, project properties will come up. I'm going to choose the main storyboard. Okay, and for simplicity's sake, I'm going to set my designer to show a compact view on width, which will resemble an iPhone. So now what I want to do is find a table view controller, or not a controller, a table view, which I've got here, and I want to plop it down inside my view controller. Set some spacing here. Okay. And I'll set some basic constraints for my height, for my width, and we should be good with our table view at this point. So now what I want to do is actually go to my view controller, and in order to use a table view you need to implement a couple classes here, and so what we do is we are going to implement the UITableView Delegate and the UITableView Datasource. So we will do UITableView Delegate and UITableView Datasource, and make this code look a little less dirty. And so as soon as you do that, it's going to tell you that you're not conforming to the Datasource protocol. So basically what we need to do is we need to create a couple functions here, and these functions will serve the purpose of providing settings back to the table view. So there are two we need to implement at a minimum here. The first one is going to deal with the number of rows, and this is basically going to tell the table view how many rows are in the index, or the items collection that we're going to be binding to our table view. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of cheat for a second, and we're going to find the one that has number of rows. Table view, and there's an overload here which has a number of rows. That's what we're using, and for right now we're going to return back 0 rows, and that's because we have not created anything to hold our data. So the first thing I want to do here is create a variable, and we're going to call it items. And we're just going to put 2 items in here as an example. And in a later demo you'll see how to actually bind this up to a JSON request. But right now I'm going to set, I just have 2 items in my items collection. Fix some nastiness with my code here. And so what you really want to do here is you want to basically say items.count, because this is again telling the table view how many rows it's dealing with. So the next one is how the table view gets its cell. So this function is responsible for returning back the actual cell that is going to be displayed. So what we need to do is there is an overload that takes a cell for index, cell for row at index, which is what we want. And so basically what we have to do is construct a cell here. Now it's pretty easy. So we will just create a variable for our cell. It's a UITableView cell. And we're going to set it to nil right now because there's something we want to do. Okay, we have more code that we're going to have to write in here, but for now we're going to have to change this up a little bit. So let's go back to our main storyboard. I want to create a reference to my table view, and the way I do that is I hit control and I drag the control that I want to reference to and I move it up to my code. Now I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it my table view. And that creates an outlet, which is basically a weak reference to that control. So go ahead and get rid of this stuff. And this is bugging me, so I'd like to clean this up a bit here. Okay, so now what we can do is I can go ahead and get some. I can get the cell reference. And the way I do that is self.mytable, and I'm going to do DQ reusable cell with identifier. And the identifier is going to be cell. And I'm going to cast that as a UITableView cell. So now I have a cell. What I want to do now with my cell is actually provide some data in it. So I'll do this by cell.textLabel. I'm going to set the text of that text label equal to, since I have a string array, it's just basically going to be an item in the string array. So we just do self.items. And we're going to pick the indexer based off of the index path that's passed into this function when the table view calls it. And I want the actual row out of that. And so that is basically going to pull out the string from my items list, and it's going to set it to the text of the text label that's part of the cell. We're going to return the cell, and so let me go ahead and at this point we should have a functioning table view up in my view. Did be able to run this. Load. We'll see two items in the list. What I'll do there 1 and 2. I'll do self.my. So we'll go ahead and run this. Build succeeded. I'm going to simulator to pop it up. Class. And if all goes well, we'll have one, and it's going to be a UI TableView cell.self. So that's basically taking the default instance of a table cell, and I'm registering that for the cell with the name cell. And the way we do that is it's this for cell reuse identifier. And we're calling it cell as we referenced below. So maybe So my problem was I did not set my data source to self, so it didn't know where to retrieve the data. So now that I've done that, I have a 1 and a 2. So in the next demo, what I'm going to show you is how to actually bind this to a JSON call and get data back. But that's it for now. Thank you.